You are an Ironman!
Welcome to episode 81. Today we'll explore an extraordinary story of resilience, courage, and the relentless pursuit of what's possible. Today's guest is James Logan, the author of a book called Just Keep Trying. After spending decades chasing his dream of becoming an Ironman, James faced his greatest challenge yet, a stage 4 cancer diagnosis with a terminal prognosis. Most people would have given up. James chose to keep moving forward. In this inspiring conversation, we explore the power of discipline, resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity, the role of faith and purpose, and why the greatest victories in life aren't always found at the finish line. This is a story about refusing to quit, finding strength when you think you've none left, and discovering that your greatest legacy is the hope that you leave with others. This is the story of James Logan.
This podcast is sponsored by Velo Yellow, providing bike transport to events across Europe. Supported also by Fear the Turtle Triathlon Coaching, Conway Cycles and Vitalize Omagh. Contact details available in the episode description.
Jim, you're very, very welcome onto the podcast. It's great to finally meet up with you.
Thank you, Micky. I appreciate your time.
Jim, I have had the pleasure of reading your book, and it is a very, very powerful book. I'm going to put a link to the book in the podcast description, and I would encourage all the listeners to buy the book. It's going towards a good cause, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as we make our way through the discussion. This particular podcast is all about the journey. It's all about people overcoming life hurdles and curveballs that are thrown at us, and how we can adapt and make things the best that we can. And your story ticks all those boxes. I suppose before we get into things, I'd like to start off back in the day. I read in your book with some intrigue about a situation back in 1982, whenever you were sitting at home with your dad watching the TV. And on the TV that day was coverage of the Ironman World Championships. And you took a particular interest to this, and it lit something deep inside. Talk me through your memories of that moment.
Yeah, it was 1982. I was a senior in high school, and I was actually going to high school in Germany at the time. So my dad was a UPS executive, and we lived in Europe, and it was West Germany at the time. So we didn't get a whole lot of TV, so it was surprising that I even got that little bit of ABC Wide World Sports. And they showed this race that was just 4 years old. It's in its infancy, but it had taken off pretty well at this point and gained national TV coverage, obviously international. And as I sat there and watched in amazement, saw Julie Moss do the dance of the drunken monkey a few hundred meters from the finish line. She was set to win the race. You know, nutrition, all that information we have now, they didn't have back then. So she bonked right on the finish line and did that famous stagger crawl to the finish line, which is etched in my mind, and I know so many others people's minds. And what I find, that's where the seed was planted for me. And what's always funny to me, not funny, but interesting, is that I don't remember who won the race, because there's another young lady who passed Julie Moss to win as she was crawling to the finish line. She gave up first place because she couldn't finish, but she's the one that people remember. And Ironman's funny like that. It's not all about the people who win the race. There's interesting stories all the way back to the person who finishes last, in my opinion. But yeah, that's when the seed was planted. Unfortunately, there were no other races. That was the first Ironman invented. So they didn't have sprints. They didn't have local races like we do now, you know, Olympic distance and the shorter distances that you could do as a hobby. So it took about 10 years for them to start showing up. And as soon as they did, I jumped in. So that was like middle 1990s, late 90s. And since then, I've probably done over 300 races, biking, swimming, you know, triathlons, biathlons, duathlons, any or all three of those combinations, whatever was available.
So you were deeply inspired by what you've seen on the TV. Was it
Mhm.
something about the combination of the three sports, or was it something more about the distance that they had covered? What was it that kind of
Yeah, it
grabbed
was
you about that one?
the difficulty and the enormousness of it. And, back then, like I'll say back then and now, now you have these 250-mile desert races and some things that are beyond even well beyond Ironman. I put Ironman in the 1 day endurance category. You can't compare it to a multi-day event. It's not the same thing. But I don't think there's any more difficult 1 day event. I think Ironman pretty much holds that spot, the most difficult 1 day endurance event. And that part, I wondered if I could do it like so many people would, it's like, could I do that? Do I have what it takes to do that? And it's always been in my mind, these 40 something years later, I get to go to Kona and see if I have what it takes. And since 1982, even though there weren't races available, I would watch that race every year on Wide World of Sports. And each year they would highlight, disabled athletes facing a challenge. Maybe they got hit by a car, maybe they had cancer, maybe they had some other issue, but they always made space in the race for those kind of people, like Dick Coit and his son, and Chris Nikic, the first young man with Down syndrome to do Ironman, and now he's just killing it all over the place. And I was always fascinated by those people as well, because not only did they have to have the fitness to do the race, but they had to overcome other obstacles. They were blind or they're missing legs, and it's just mind blowing to me now that I am actually one of those people racing with stage 4, supposedly terminal cancer. They told me I was terminal in April of 24, gave me 6 months, maybe 2 years to live. It's 28 months later. I have no evidence of disease. I'm alive and thriving. And it was anything other than terminal. Terminal is defined as the end. It was really the beginning of the new me, the new life that I've developed. And that's one of the reasons I'm thankful to cancer, which gave me the time to reflect and have the opportunities to make the changes in my life that put me in a place where I'm living a more meaningful, purposeful life than I ever have. And I'm grateful for that.
Jim, you first attempted Ironman back in 2018.
Yep.
I think it was Ironman Chattanooga, if I've pronounced that correctly.
Yes, it was. Yeah, age 55.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
None of these Ironman events have gone according to plan to date. Orion, we're keeping the fingers crossed that the next big one will go perfectly according to plan. But talk me through your memories of that very first Ironman. It's always a very special one to reflect on.
I would say the first Ironman I was pretty excited for. And leading up to that point, even whether I was trained perfectly or had, good training leading up to a big race, I was always able to finish the races. I never not finished. I mean, I just always finished, whether it was a marathon or a century or a half Ironman. So when I got to Ironman, I really underestimated what was going to be necessary for that race. And I think I came in undertrained, underplanned. I mean, I didn't have a watch. I didn't have any technology. I didn't have food or water measured out. So I really came in at a real disadvantage there. So I really basically disrespected the race, and I paid a price for that. But that particular day, they canceled the swim in Chattanooga because the river was just out of control. So for me, I thought, no swim, no Ironman, but they're still going to do the bike and the run. But for some reason in my head, I thought, well, like it's not going to be that big of a deal. So ended up having a couple of beers with my brother, and maybe was a little hungover when I started the bike ride. That was a huge mistake. I'll never done that since. But I got on the bike and I did the 112 miles, and then I did the 26.2 mile run. So I got, the bulk of the race in that day, but doesn't count. Ironman counts it, but I personally don't count it because the swim wasn't there. Obviously, you got to put all three together to claim the Ironman, and then years after that, the next year I went, and it was the hottest day in the history of the world, and people were dehydrating all over the place. I didn't dehydrate, but I came up short on the cutoff at the half marathon. So I did the swim, the bike, and then half the run. I probably could have finished the other half marathon, but not under the time limit. So I was forced to stop short there. Next year was COVID. Next year I got COVID. The next year I went and I overhydrated because I was so scared of dehydrating. So it was just a comedy of errors. And the harder I worked, each time I learned something, and each time I worked a little bit harder, but each time something new presented itself. And, when I look back at it, I think mentally one of the things that allowed me to screw up, fail, quit, whatever, is that I think in the back of my head, I always thought that I'd have another shot, that this isn't my last race. And it's a question I ask older Iron people. You're a little younger, but if you knew your last race was your last race, would you have raced it differently? Because I don't think sometimes maybe you don't, maybe some people go in and go, this is going to be my last race, and it is. Or does something happen that prevents you from racing again, and then you realize your last race was your last race? I think that's why I got the title Just Keep Trying. After I was diagnosed, I kept signing up for Ironmans, and people were like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I said, I just have to keep trying. I didn't know why I was doing it, but it's what I've done my whole life. So it felt normal and natural to just go back to that, even though I had no reasonable expectation of doing well, And that's when my mind shifted a little bit as far as finish line, start line. I went from, used to be about getting to the finish line, and it's still important to me. It really is. But it was more about getting to the start line and having something to focus on for 9 months other than cancer and death and, all this horrible stuff. So in a way, that training and that focus kind of saved me.
Jim, talk us through that period of time whenever you first found out that you had the diagnosis of cancer. It's obviously a very, very significant moment, and a moment that would put a lot of people under tremendous worry and anxiety. Did you feel that your lifestyle up until that point with your triathlon, your fitness journey, did that give you some sort of purpose outside of the cancer diagnosis? I know personally that there's this notion of a theory of totality where we are so many aspects, but when people receive a significant diagnosis, that becomes the thing then that defines them. Did you find that your sporting background, your fitness, and your love for the outdoors gave you an alternative identity other than I have cancer?
Absolutely. And I definitely had that before cancer. My friends would always just refer to me as the Iron Man, or, fitness is my life. Triathlon became my lifestyle. So much so that my house is full of bikes, and my family vacations revolve around my races. So it's intertwined in my life and was, and that's why it was so easy for me to go back to it. As I explained, I didn't know what I'd be able to do on chemo. Going into it, I was completely blind because for 59 and a half years, I had lived a very healthy life. I mean, don't get sick. I've never been in the hospital. I didn't have any problems, and there was no warning before I got this diagnosis. So I went from perfectly healthy, almost 60 years old, 180 pounds, 11% body fat, doing long distance endurance. And, you would have never guessed that this would happen to me, but that's the insidious nature of cancer. It doesn't discriminate between healthy people, sick people, children. It's an equal opportunity killer. To say the least. But I went from perfectly healthy to you have 6 months and 2 years to live. And, for the first 6 months, I believed the doctors that what they told me, I believed them. And 6 months in, at my lowest point, I had just attempted Ironman Chattanooga, and it went equally bad. Each of those races, Texas, I tried in 24 after being diagnosed, but before treatment. And then I did Chattanooga after 3 months of chemo. I had lost 35 pounds. I had the level 3 skin infection like I have now. And it just didn't go well. I got 7-8 hours in. It was a brutal, horrible day. And I was really dejected, thinking, once again, this is my last race. I didn't think I'd have another shot. And at that moment, my lowest moment, I just surrendered everything to God and said, I'm going to leave this in God's hands and just focus on the day ahead. A week later, I got a scan that showed almost all the tumors had disappeared, and the light bulb went off in my head. I'm not done yet. I'm not done living. Here I am focused on dying when I have time left. And once I did that, I decided to write the book. I decided to sign up for another Ironman, which I did, Ironman Florida, where I got involved with the Ironman Foundation. And that's how I got to, meet Audra, the executive director of the foundation, and ultimately get the invitation to go to Kona after she heard what I'm doing. So, the minute I made the choice to not worry about tomorrow, just focus on the day ahead, put all my faith in God, and just do what I can with the time that I have, all these doors started opening for me and all these things started happening. So here we are you know, 2.5 years since diagnosis, and I've written the book. It's published. It's a #1 Amazon bestseller in cancer, triathlon, and spiritual growth. It's being considered for a Pulitzer Prize in 2027 in the genre of memoirs. And so it's being really well received, really well reviewed. People who read it said it's an easy, quick read, and there's a lot of beautiful messages in there that, you know, regardless whether you have cancer or you're an Ironman, there's something in this book for everybody, because it's not really a book of, it's about triathlon, but not really. It's about cancer, but not really. I think it's more about family and faith and the things that really matter, which are relationships and experiences. And so now I'm just trying to spread that message to people and help as many people lift their spirits. If something I do, something I say, something I write can be helpful to someone else going through a difficult time, if I can be that inspiration, that's what gives me joy now, especially when I get the good feedback.
Jim, you have faced something that would have caused so many people just to abandon their dreams, you know, with that stage 4 cancer diagnosis. Just weeks before your Ironman event.
Yeah.
Looking back, what was the source of your strength? You know, does it redefine what strong actually means to you?
Yeah, you know, I thought I was strong before, but after everything I've been through over the last 30 months, you know, you'd be surprised. I think all of you, everybody would be surprised the inner strength that you have. Maybe it's just in some people and not in others, but I knew I came into cancer physically, mentally, and spiritually pretty strong and in a good position financially. You know, every measurable way, my life was pretty good. And I think that's important when you go into a really tough battle, like all the chemotherapy and all the surgeries and radiation that I've done over the previous months. I think Ironman in particular really built that mental toughness, and the mental strength is really more important than the physical, as we know in triathlon and Ironman. At the end, it comes down to your mind. And it was so much so with cancer. When you lose the mental battle, your body will follow, and it won't be long after that till your body just gives up. So, you know, the mental strength that I had going into it has just been strengthened even more. So much so that I recently had a bit of an epiphany where for a long time, you know, as things were not going my way and I'm getting closer to Kona, I had a rough 6 months coming into the first part of the year. My colostomy prolapsed, meaning my intestines fell out of my stomach in the first week of the year. We put those back in. While I was in the hospital, they discovered 3 golf ball sized tumors, brand new on my liver, which put me back in heavy chemo, which caused an infection and blood clots on my aorta, which put me in the hospital for 7 days. And while I was in the hospital dealing with the blood clots, I got, you know, it was really in a low spot, but the doctors came in and gave me the diet, said I'm no evidence of disease again. I'd be out of the hospital in a couple of days. The blood clots will be under control. We did a surgery to fix the prolapsed colostomy, and boom, I'm no evidence of disease, perfectly healthy, ready to go by July 1st, which just, you know, came up. And I had a great month of workouts really in July. So for the longest time, I was wondering why these things were happening to me. And then I started to ask the question a little differently. Why are these things happening for me? You can find a silver lining in every bad thing that happens to you. And I think that's really the key to life. Bad things are going to happen to us all, but if you can learn from it, grow from it, and then ultimately share it with other people who might be in a similar place, I think that's what you're supposed to be doing as a person. And that's what makes me happy. So I look for the reasons why it's happening for me, not to me. And as I look back, you know, nothing that can happen to me in Kona in 17 hours in the water, on the bike, or on the run will compare to what I've been through in the previous 30 months. So I'm stronger than I've ever been. I credit this fitness lifestyle, Ironman in particular, for a lot of that. So it was in me. I had already trained it into me. So it helps if it's already there. If you have to develop it all of a sudden, it might be a little bit more difficult, but I wouldn't know about that. So
Jim, you certainly have strength in abundance. Your mental strength is remarkable, and with that comes resilience. You have never stopped showing up. I mean, despite all those DNFs, how do you separate your identity from the results? And what advice would you give to someone who maybe feels defined by those setbacks and those failures?
Yeah. So when this is really a good question. And I think every Ironman in particular, a lot of people ask you why you do Ironman. It's different for everybody. The easy answer is to say the finish line, but it's so much more than that. It's so much deeper than that. Just like if you say, what's a triathlon? Swim, bike, run. That would be the easiest answer. But we know, especially at Ironman level, it's so much more than just 3 events. It goes way deeper than that. And I think with when you look at an Ironman training program, and let's say I started in December of 25, so it was 10 months for me to Kona. And if you do 4 weeks in a month, that's 40 weeks. And say you do 10 sessions, 400 training sessions from start to race day. And then you show up for 1 day of racing, 17 hours of racing. Are you telling me that 17 hours of racing is more important than 400 training sessions executed consistently over 10 months? The money's already in the bank. The benefits are already there. No one can take that away from you. So what I come to learn, and I think all of us do at some point, is we love the process. We love the day-to-day. We love the discipline. And there's more benefit in that, believe it or not, than there is in the finish line. With that said, the finish line is a great coronation. It's a wonderful thing. That's why you do it. I want it more than you could ever imagine. And that's why I never stopped. And I'm actually glad I didn't finish the first one, because had I finished the one in 2018, I might not have continued to pursue it. But as is my personality, as is my nature, I'm not going to stop until I get it. And I think it's great to save it for Kona. I mean, what a place to cross my first Ironman finish line after. I don't like to call them failures. They are DNFs for sure. But I would like to think of them all as learning experiences, and I've grown and learned from each one. And I think, again, it's a great analogy for life is, that's how life is. Sometimes you don't, achieve the goal, but you get back up and you keep trying. And it's great to have a goal so lofty, so difficult that it occupies almost a decade of your life. If you set a 3-month goal, what are you going to do in 3 months? You got to come up with a new one.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I like about Ironman too. It's the right amount of time. If you do one Ironman a year, it takes, that's going to dominate pretty much your training for the year. You do some little races leading up to it that are really just in support of that one big race. That's usually the way I would schedule my year. I'd start in January. I'd pick a big race, usually in the fall, and then spread my little races throughout the spring and summer leading up to that big race. Try to do about 10 a year, and it would just keep me focused. If you didn't put races on the schedule, you're probably not going to do the training. So when it comes to maybe getting to the finish line, maybe not getting to the finish line, just getting to the start line is quite an accomplishment when you consider what it takes just to get there. And of course, like I said, you don't want to diminish the finish line because it's really, really important. But it's only one day, and it's not a reflection. And you can't, no matter what happens on that day, nobody can take the fitness away. Nobody can take the benefits of the discipline away. And all the other aspects, the good effects of the training and the discipline overflows into your life into ways that are not measurable. You know what I mean? So, that's kind of the determination that I've come to. If you're, that's why the book, keep trying. If you don't get it the first time, learn from it, come back, keep trying. But what I have learned is just like cancer again. So with cancer, everything that's happened to me, it happens, but then it doesn't happen again. The next time something new and different happens, it doesn't repeat itself, so you can't be prepared for what's next. Ironman's like that. Each race I've had a different set of issues, as we probably all had, but they don't repeat themselves because you learn, you don't let that happen again. But the next time something new and unexpected will happen, guaranteed.
Well, let's talk about your next start line, because the goal is to get to that start line, and it's a very, very special start line. We're talking about the opportunity that you've been given to take on the mighty triathlon that is Ironman in Kona, the Mecca, as it were, of triathlon. Talk us through that process. How did you come about being able to actually go to Kona?
Get that slot.
How has the training been?
Well, I was making these sad efforts at these, Texas is a sad effort, Chattanooga was a sad effort. And then I had my epiphany and decided that I would dedicate my life to a life of service and charity, and trying to figure out how to do that. And then incorporate my passion for Ironman and try to get that involved as well. I signed up for Ironman Florida immediately. And while I was signing up, I saw the Ironman Foundation highlight, and I'd seen it before. I kind of knew a little bit about the foundation. I know that's the charitable wing of the Ironman, but I had never looked into it. And I thought, this is perfect. I can finally give back to the sport that's given me so much. And I would feel really good about raising money for the Ironman Foundation. So I clicked on the link. It seemed like a completely reasonable thing to do money wise as far as raising money. It wasn't a tremendous amount of money. I think it was $3,500. They give you free admission with your commitment. You get a really cool one of a kind Ironman Foundation kit. And I ended up raising $10,000 for Ironman Florida in 2025. And so I was pretty happy about that. You know, throughout my career, I've done, like I said, hundreds of races, never volunteered, never kind of gave back, and just kind of, was always the racer. So I felt a little guilty about that. And this made me feel better, about giving back to this community that's done so much for me. And through that process, I got to meet Audra, who's the executive director of the Ironman Foundation. She's a wonderful human being. And turns out we know each other from 1982 back to high school years, Ridgefield, Connecticut. And so we reminisced about old times and old friends, and she expressed her sympathy for my situation and her gratefulness for me raising money for the foundation. And the last question she asked was, is there anything I can do for you? And that's when I said, yeah, you can get me into Kona 2026. Done. So that's how that came about. And to me, another miracle. I mean, the fact that I have a relationship with Audra that went back that far and that we reconnected the way that we did, cancer is the reason I got into the race. Again, the foundation always makes room for people with disabilities and people with challenges, because the Ironman motto is anything's possible. And that's exactly what we aim to prove. This year we have Greg Schaefer. He's got Parkinson's syndrome. Tremendous athlete, tremendous human being. Scott Christmas, another incredible survival story. And just one after the other, 30 people on the team of these inspirational, motivational people that are going to try to do this race regardless of their circumstances, to prove to themselves and to give your life meaning and purpose. The way you deal with a terminal disease is, first of all, you don't think about terminal. And I've been joking with people that, when they told me I was terminal, I really believed them, and I didn't like the language, defined as the end, which ended up just being the beginning of so many things for me. But what I realized is that I was terminal before I went into the doctor's office. I was terminal before my cancer diagnosis, and got bad news for you, Micky, and everyone else listening. You're also terminal.
Yeah.
So you should start living your life as if there's the old sayings like there's no tomorrow, but there may not be. Right now, when you have difficulty getting up in the morning or you don't feel like doing a workout, you don't have to do the workout. You get to. It's a privilege. When you reach a point like where I'm at, where your medical condition, your physical condition prevents you from doing the things that you love to do, that's a sad day. So always appreciate the fact that you still have the ability to do it, and that others don't, and that's a privilege, and you need to just enjoy every minute of it, because you never know when you won't be able to do it anymore. But the Ironman Foundation is just a great organization. They've given away $60 million in countries all over the world over the last 20-something years. And a lot of what they do is teach kids to swim and to bike and to run and to set their goals and their mindset to the idea that anything is possible. So once you open up a child's mind to that idea, to that premise that anything's possible, that's the gift that keeps giving. They'll carry that throughout their life, and they do wonderful work. I'm so honored and proud to be a part of it.
There's a wonderful theme that runs through your book, Jim, and I have picked out, there's four sort of pillars, I'll call them: discipline, sacrifice, suffering, and pain. And you talk about them throughout the book. What have you learned about those pillars, traits, whatever you call them? How do you define those things?
I call them, they are the four pillars of my life's philosophy, the cornerstones of life, really, I believe universally for anybody. These principles can be applied by anybody to anything, and it'll lead you to success one way or the other. And, I didn't realize I was living this discipline, sacrifice, suffering, and pain lifestyle, the DSSP lifestyle, until I decided to write the book. As I looked back on my life and reflected, then I gave it a name. it didn't have a name for the years I was living it. But as I look back, reflected on my life, I summed it up into those 4 words and that philosophy. As a self-employed person all my life, discipline was, if I don't do it, no one else is gonna. So, working 7 days a week, and in the book I talk about working 25/7. People are like, what? How do you get 25 hours out of a day? I was like, well, I don't take lunch, so I get that extra hour. uh, but no, if you have discipline and you can execute a plan, first off, if you don't have discipline, you can forget the other 3. The conversation's over. You need to have some discipline, be able to execute a plan. If you can execute a plan, then you're willing to make some sacrifices and you don't mind enduring some suffering and pain, then you could achieve anything that you apply these principles to. Consistency over a long period of time, you'd be surprised what you can achieve. Little things that you do each day consistently lead up to big results. Even Ironman, when you look at an Ironman, the distance of the Ironman it's daunting. But my workout today is an hour and 20 minutes on the bicycle. I can do that. It's an hour 20 on the indoor bike. It's actually an easy ride as I'm coming off this little skin infection thing. But, I'm not thinking about doing an Ironman today. I've got an hour and 20-minute ride to do today. If I do what I need to do today, race day will take care of itself. So I have good confidence. I'm smarter than I've ever been. I'll be more prepared, believe it or not, even with cancer, I believe, for this race than I ever have otherwise. And I also know it's, there's no second chances here. It's, I got to do this on this day. So I'm enjoying the anticipation, the excitement. Again, to have a lofty goal to pursue instead of sitting on the couch and letting nature take its course. That's losing the mental battle. That's giving in to cancer. I have cancer. Cancer does not have me. Cancer could do whatever it wants to do. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And what I'm doing is making me so happy and fulfilling me in ways that I could have never imagined. Meeting people like you, spreading my message of, faith and hope to people who might be suffering. But the message is universal. You don't have to be suffering to get something out of it. Just keep trying goes for everybody out there. And live your life as if, with a little urgency. And, today matters because it's all you get.
One of the things that inspired me was the fact that I was a father, and that when I reflect back on who I was sort of up until about 40 years of age, I guess I wasn't a good role model in the sense that I was quite unfit, a bit lazy, lying about, watching TV, popping cans of beer at the weekend. Something sparked, something changed, and I decided that I would redefine myself and become a better role model, a better person, a better father, a better husband, etc., etc.
Yeah.
There's a very, very powerful bit in your book that talks about teaching your son not just how to live, but how to suffer well. So talk me through that. I know I understand what it is, the drive and the goal to try and set an example for someone to live by. But what you're doing is intriguing. It's very, very intriguing.
Yeah, my son is watching. I never lose sight of that fact. I only have one son, so I don't have multiple kids to deal with. It's just one, which has made it a bit simpler. Luke was born when I was 40, so I was a bit older, a bit more mature. I understand what you're saying because I suffered from that as well, and I call it complacency. You get complacent in your life, and you're not being. It's not that you were a bad guy. You weren't as good as you could be, and I understand the guilt of thinking, wow, I could have been better. I could have been a better husband, could have been a better father. That's okay. You had the realization and you started, and you didn't need a life-altering diagnosis like me to come to these terms. And, it took me 59 and a half years. You got there a little sooner. That's great. But that where your focus should be is on your wife and your family. I know my son is always, top of mind when, it's not so much what you say, especially with boys. They watch what you do. He's watching how I handle a terminal disease, and he's seeing how I turn tragedy to triumph, how I wrote a book, and now I'm doing podcasts and giving public speeches and lifting people's spirits and hopes in the face of my own diagnosis, and how I handle chemo and continue to train and race and live and thrive will be a great lesson for him. And as I said in the book, I spent 21 years teaching him how to live. And the final lesson I'll teach him is how to die with some courage and some dignity and some faith. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job of that right now. So part of the reason I do what I do is as long as my family sees me doing well and thriving, they don't worry about me. Nobody's worried about me dying right now. They're worried about me getting to Kona and finishing this race. Really proud of my effort with the book. So I've got tremendous family support, tremendous friend support. I'm making new friends every day like you. So, I couldn't be happier with what I'm doing. It really brightens my day. So even now, I have a level 3 skin infection. It's quite uncomfortable, but sitting here talking with you, I haven't thought about it once until just now. It takes your mind off
It's
of
a
the
good
bad
thing
stuff.
to be able to find something that we can lose ourselves in from
Yeah.
time to time. And I find that triathlon does that for me. Whatever trials and tribulations that you might have, trivial and all that they may seem in comparison with what you're going through at the minute, it gives us an option. It gives us that moment where we can tap out. We can lose ourselves. We can get caught up in the activity that we're doing.
Yeah.
And suddenly it gives us a bit of respite from worries
Yeah,
or
and it
concerns or
doesn't
whatever
have to
else
be,
is
it
maybe eating at us.
doesn't have to be triathlon. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to do Ironman. It's like, that's fine. Don't do Ironman. You don't even have to do triathlons. You could play pickleball or, go for a walk or fishing or go for some people, it's gardening, whatever that thing is, you have your family, obligations. Most of us have a job or a career obligation, but I think everybody should have the balance in their life where you take some time to do something that's strictly for you. That's your joy, that's your passion. A lot of people say, you should find your passion and then make that your job. I don't think that's necessarily true. Making your passion your job could ruin your passion because now it's work. Your passion should just be your passion. Find something you're good at that you could be an expert at. That could be your career. But so I was a home inspector. I'm a construction professional. That's what I'm an expert at. But my passion is fitness and sharing sharing my optimism with other people. So but yeah, if you don't have a lofty goal, I would suggest you find one, because I think for me, 59 and a half years in pursuit of happiness, I come to realize that happiness is in the pursuit. So pick a lofty goal. If you have something you're waking up to and you're excited about, you don't really need an alarm clock. Your brain's already working on solutions for the issues of the day ahead, So and like I said, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be an Ironman. You don't have to write a book. It could be, you could start, if you like gardening, grow vegetables and then go give them to cancer patients who need to eat organic, clean vegetables. Something like that. I don't know. I'm just coming up with something, but generally helping other people is what will make you feel better about yourself. And if you can find something that you love to do, like I love Ironman, and then you can use it to help other people, it's just a wonderful thing. And in the process of me doing all that, then I realized, what if I put the profits from the book toward my fundraising goal for the foundation? So that's what I decided to do. Now the book is not only helping people, hopefully individually, but each time you buy a book, the profit goes to the Ironman Foundation, which helps people all over the world. So it's a feel-good thing all the way around. And I'm just really, like I said, happy, thankful to cancer that give me the opportunity to do things I never dreamed of. I'm living my best life right now. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Brilliant stuff. Your lofty goal is to complete Ironman Kona. Your fitness, your knowledge of fitness, your years and decades of fitness and training have given you the discipline. You've got the strength. I know you've got the mental resilience. You've got the purpose. We all know your why. Talk me through your training up till now and what you're hoping the day might have for you, or are you just going to wait and see what happens?
Well, I'm working with Jill Bartholomew of Be Fierce Multisports. She's a pretty high level trainer. She works with some pretty high level athletes. She's a ex Olympic level speed skater, also a high level triathlete herself, competing in world championships every year. So I've got her guiding me through this process, which was really almost an impossible task because my medical condition changes every day. I was with her on the phone yesterday and literally TriDot says what I'm going to do. And then she changes everything for the next 2 weeks, just based on, different factors. So it's been kind of fun to do that. I know it's been a tremendous challenge for her, but, coming into this year, I was no evidence of disease in December of 25. And then in January, as I told you earlier, everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but I managed to stick to my training program probably as much as 85% of the workouts I was able to get in. Even with all the chemo and all the other nonsense that was going on, I managed to get the work in. and it was very difficult to get started because after all the surgeries and all the chemo, you would think 30 or 40 years of fitness would have some longevity to it. But, you get sedentary for 6 weeks. It's like starting all over again and getting back in the pool, getting back in the run. I think my first 5K I averaged 22 minutes a mile. I mean, that's slow. That's not even a walk. I call it a shuffle. But, I'm back to, normal for me, back to more closer to, 12-minute miles, 11-minute miles. So, the fitness came back quickly. I suffered through it. I kept telling myself the entire time, as hard as it was, and there were some days that were extremely difficult, that if I can't do this, I can't go to Kona. If you can't do this workout, how are you going to go to Kona? And that's what got me through every time. I'm like, well, if I'm willing to suffer and endure this pain for the next 70 days we're down to or whatever, I'm going to be in good shape. And I'm in better shape now than I was then. So I did have a brief hospitalization in April where I was out for 4 weeks because of a giant blood clot. But we solved that, and now I'm back on track. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I can remain, it's hard with cancer. Anything can happen at any given time, including what I did just recently, which was, take too much of the oral medication. I was supposed to be 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. No one told me about the 2 weeks off. I took 5 weeks of this stuff and kind of overdosed on the chemo. So now I got to take a break, let my skin heal up. And, but other than that, I'm free and clear for the next 2 months. I don't really see anything getting in my way. I'm confident in the program that I have, and I've seen my fitness level improve. So when I came out of the hospital, my VO2 max for running and biking had dropped to 38 on both. And over the last month, back up running, I'm up to 42 VO2 max and cycling 41. And I can feel improvement in so many areas. My weight is 182 pounds, 11.8% body fat, right where I started 2.5 years ago. So I feel the strength building if I can just stay, without any health issues for the next couple of months. I think I have a very good chance. And according to AI, I'll make it. So, barring any other, nonsense or mechanicals or any other ridiculousness, I think I'll be able to overcome, and I think I'll be able to do it under 17 hours. I have confidence. Things look good.
I've been following your journey on Instagram for quite a while, Jim, and I love your honesty. I love how you introduce everybody. You refer to your friends, your family, and your followers. And there's just a real lovely sense of honesty with you. You do share the ups, you share the downs.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm pretty sure about is that you are going to finish this Ironman. So I wouldn't be relying too heavily on AI. I would be looking at Jim.
Yeah.
Jim's stats and Jim's discipline, your sacrifice, your suffering, your pain, everything that you've been putting together, everything that we have talked about in the last 40 minutes tells me that there's no other ending to this particular chapter in the book of your life, that you will finish that Ironman in Kona. What do you think?
I appreciate your confidence. It's one of the reasons that I am honest, and one of the reasons I share as much as I can, ups and downs, backs and forths, is I wanted to give, faith to the faithless and hope to the hopeless, and prove the Ironman motto that anything is possible. But, when I hear your support, and we've just recently met, and it's been a great pleasure, it warms my heart. It makes me feel even more inspired. And when I'm out on that course, a little bit of what you just said will be with me, as well as many others, my family, my friends, my new friends, and all the people that I know are going to be watching me that day, supporting me. I want the finish line as much as I do for everybody else. So I won't be racing by myself on October 10th. I know that, and I really appreciate your kind words. It means the world to me.
I will be definitely tracking you on the day, Jim, via the old Ironman app, and I would encourage everyone to do that. I'd like to encourage all the listeners to put their hand in the pocket and support the Ironman Foundation and support Jim's journey and story, and buy the book. Just keep trying. One last question just before we wrap up, Jim. If this podcast reaches someone today facing a dark chapter in their life, what would you say to them, or what would you want them to hear from someone who's lived through adversity and still chooses to just keep trying?
I would say that very simply, no matter how bad things are, no matter how bad things seem, it's not the end. It could be the beginning. And it just, you have to shift your mindset a little bit. I don't know what you're going through. It could be a loss of a family member. It could be depression. It could be divorce. It could be any number of things, whether it's, for me, it's terminal cancer. But it doesn't really matter. Sometimes you can't see the finish line. Sometimes you can't see a better day, but you have to have faith and believe that tomorrow will be a better day. That's where faith and hope come in. And if you have faith, you have hope. And if you have hope, anything is possible. I believe that because I've seen it in my life, and I believe it's true for others. So if they can take on that belief that, sometimes when you're in your darkest moments, it's real hard to see a way out, but there is a way out. You just have to keep trying. And I think that's the universal message that goes beyond cancer, it goes beyond triathlon. It's true for everybody. Live for today. Don't worry so much about tomorrow, and believe that tomorrow will be a better day. If you take care of today, tomorrow will be just fine.